Check, check, quick sound check. Can you all hear me loud and clear? Do a sound check. Hopefully, everybody can hear me clearly. Got it good. Sounds good. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Joe Black. Sorry we're starting a little bit late, but we are here. Welcome to At the Buzzer. Oh, this is not At the Buzzer. Welcome to Slow Markets, everyone. Got to put my Dakota hat on. Welcome to Slow Markets. I am Coach Jay, filling in for Coach Dakota tonight. And I have some music playing from somewhere in my headphones. I got to try to figure out where that is. Actually, I'll just take. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. We are going to be going over the markets tonight, just like Dakota would, slow market style. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat. Our wonderful mod Andrew is going to send those over to me so we can answer those. We'll be looking at the markets, talking about some news, talking about trades that we took today. And remember, this is not a signals class. Anything we say here is for educational purposes only. I'm going to put the Topstep risk disclosure in the chat just so you have that. Make sure you read through that. Anything we talk about is for educational purposes, not a suggestion to take a trade. Right? And I really wish I could figure out where that music is coming from, but that's okay. All right. So, how was everyone's trading? Let me know how your trading went. I'll find the music. Let me know how your trading went today. I had a pretty negative day in my accounts, but that is okay. Was a pretty choppy day if you were trading the equities. Danielle, it was the music from Slack. It was music from Slack. Sorry about that. Dakota is Californicating right now, hanging out in California, enjoying some time off. But we are here. We are here. Let's go right into the Nasdaq. If you guys didn't hear already, the longshoreman strike is over. It looks like they are going to be going back to work on Friday. I know that that did cause some volatility and some uncertainty in the markets, but it looks like they got what they want out of the deal, which is a good thing, right? It was going to have a lot of negative effects on uh, just deliveries and on the country in general if that strike did last for any extended period of time. But it looks like it is over for now. They've come to an agreement, and that is over. So I saw Nick Fortick mention on Twitter that now that that's over, we can make our runs to all-time highs again. Looking at the Nasdaq, we do have NFP coming out tomorrow, so I'm not expecting too much as far as a move goes tonight, as far as a directional move. Looking at the hourly chart here, we've been in this consolidation for the last 3 days, where after we had that sell off on Tuesday, price pretty much has been pinned between 20,100 and 19,850. Not expecting too much out of this range tonight. Go down to a shorter time frame. One thing I like to do is look at the first 30 minutes of the session open, right when trading opens up again. Uh, Identify what that range is, and I'm a volume trader, so I'm going to attach VWAP to it. So far, volume has left that range, but we can see this pretty much no direction. I may not be taking a trade in this market tonight, but for fast markets tomorrow, Dakota and I will be on taking some trades in the house account, and I'm sure that that NFP print is going to give us some real good opportunity. If you see some markets that are moving, call it out in the chat. I have no problem switching over. You can see I have the quote board up on my screens here as well. It's about 30 different markets that we can trade on Topstep. And if the NASDAQ isn't presenting an opportunity, we can look at something else. Where's Dakota? Dakota is in San Diego right now. Mhm. Hanging out, having a good time. Nick Vertick had a great trading day today. Shout out to you, Nick. Right. So I'm not expecting too much movement out of the NASDAQ. If we do get some volatility, that'll be great. But not seeing too much. I am looking at I look at a bunch of different time frames. We talk about this on At the Buzzer all the time. Uh, and shout out to Coach Paul for this 200 moving average. We can see where we rejected off of on that spike up earlier today, right off of that 200 moving average, and sold off. And that 200 moving average is sloping towards the downside right now. In at least the last 3 days, we are in somewhat of a downtrend. So if we're going to push up, I think we need to, it's a significant close above this 200 moving average, which is now at 20,080. Uh, Getting somewhat closer to price, we can see the 20 and the 50 moving average kind of wrapped around each other, uh, basically telling us there's no direction in this market, and kind of have to go with that. Sitting under this major 20,000 level as well. I don't want to take too many trades around here, especially in the middle, somewhere near the extremes, up near that 80, 20,100, or down near 19,850 would be some pretty good opportunities for me, but I don't want to hold anything into NFP. Uh, Got a question here. Do I use order blocks at all? I look at the DOM, and it depends on how you define order blocks. I know everyone's going to look at it a little bit differently. For me, trading volume, I look at the depth of market, try to identify where bigger orders are, and when they get filled, I want to pay attention to the market reaction to that fill. So if that's what you're considering an order block, yes, I do. Over, nope, that's the wrong screen. That's the wrong screen too. We'll stay on this one for now. All right. Yeah, pretty quiet on the Nasdaq, and I think it's going to be if we see some volatility pick up into the session. I know sometimes during the Asian session we do get a volume spike in the next 10 minutes or so. So I will be looking at that for a potential trade. The S&P is very much the same story, consolidated, waiting for NFP. Going to be likely the biggest news of the month. So I'm sure it'll give us some type of move. What do you think of a Dow short? Right, and you guys can call out pretty much any markets that you want to look at. Again, I'm going to give you my perspective on it. I'm not seeing too much in the Nasdaq and the ES to do tonight, so this may be a very slow market. Slow markets. NFP gets released at 7:30 Central Time. Dow short looks decent as well. We are under this 200 moving average, which is this white line. And kind of see we're holding this 20 moving average, which is the yellow line, as we start to trend lower. Looks decent, but again, same thing. I wouldn't be expecting too much of a directional move tonight. Maybe going into tomorrow and the reaction to NFP. We do have, and with all the equity markets, you can look at this, but the FOMC print, right, the rate decision, which was at 1 p.m. Central Time on September 18th, kind of trading in that candle right now in the Dow. Right? So the market has some decisions to make about this range. Do we accept in it and trade lower, or does this act as a support and trade higher? Right? So going to require some patience here as well. And all of these equity markets are presenting opportunities to trade still, right? We saw Nick have a huge day in his XFAs. I had a huge negative day, which, when someone is either winning big or losing big, that means there was opportunity somewhere. And if you're trading this like a range bound trader, there's decent opportunity. You have to identify where the extremes are. For me, if I'm looking at the Dow, I'm going to call the low extreme 50% of that FOMC candle and the high somewhere near that 200 moving average. Same case for the NASDAQ as well. But that's where my trades should be, if I want to take advantage of the what the market's presenting to me, right? I don't want to be somewhere in the middle. That's where you get chopped up. That's where the trade's a little bit more 50-50. But if you can identify where the extremes of the range are, then you can take your opportunities from. How do you set an anchor point for VWAP? All right. So I get asked this question a lot because I use anchored VWAP all the time. But on the left side, the drawing tools you have on your left side here, forecasting and measurement tools, you're going to click on the right arrow. Anchored VWAP is about halfway down that menu. I have it as a favorite because I use it all the time. So it's up in this toolbar that I have. But I'm going to click on that icon. It's two candles with a line going through it. And just click on a candle and it's anchored from there. So if we can see in the Dow, the Nasdaq's going to look very similar. This VWAP is flat, right? Pretty much a flat line, which tells us there's no direction in the market. It is range bound and it's going to stay that way until volume decides to push the market in either direction. Go back to the Nasdaq, and we can see the same story here. If I start from last night's open, same story, right? We had somewhat of a sell-off in the overnight and then range-bound market during the New York session. All right. Call out any markets that you see moving, if at all. I know we are gonna, slow market style, look at gold to see if it presents an opportunity in the next 7 minutes when some of that volatility comes in. But right now, I'm just scanning. What I would be doing right now if I wasn't taking a trade, kind of just preparing for tomorrow. One of the things I look at every day is this first 30-minute range, and VWAP from that range. This is going to end up being the full session VWAP, so I could just use the VWAP indicator, right? It's the same thing, but I personally like to just put a manual one on there because I know I put it there myself, and we can see, right, no direction. We've established a range, but we're kind of just VWAP is sitting in the middle. Market's not going anywhere. So today might be a good, really good question and answer session. If you guys have it, put it in the chat, and Andrew is going to take care of it for us. Thank you for sending these over, Andrew. So, question from Segi: what would you do if you've struggled with XFAs previously by blowing them quickly within a day or two, but trade combines flawlessly and just got a new XFA? So you tell me what's been going on with your XFAs and why you're losing them quickly. If you're passing combines in a day or well, you're not passing combines in a day, but if you're passing combines in 2 days and passing them quickly, the type of trading that you're doing to pass those combines in that a short amount of time is probably an unsustainable type of trading, right? Where we might be scaling up too quick, making too many trades in the interest of trying to pass the combine quick. And then when you get to the XFA where there's real money involved, uh, that added emotion doesn't translate well, right? I've seen it a lot. When I first came to Topstep doing performance coaches and we were doing one-on-ones, that was a big thing for a lot of people doing one-on-ones, right? Where they would, hey, I can pass the combine really quick. I can make all this money. But then when I get to an XFA, I lose it. What's happening? And it's usually people are in a rush to get to the real money. And you should probably do the opposite and slow down a little bit. So scale down, start small for a week, maybe 2 weeks, build a balance, get comfortable trading with that real money, and then go from there. And then you know, if you're trading a 150K combine, right, you have and then 150K XFA, you have a $4,500 drawdown available to you in that account. If you're losing it in 2 days, you're probably not managing the account very well, right? Where your loss limit should be a lot less than what you're allowing in your account, right? Uh, but really good question. Phoenix, what about a crude short? We'll look at crude in a minute. Any relevance to buying above or selling below anchored VWAP? It depends. So when I see VWAP as a flat line, it's telling me range bound market. So I would personally like to buy below and sell above, right? Because we're in a range, so I'm fading the extremes of the range. If VWAP is trending, and let's try to find a trending market, heating oil, actually crude oil. Crude oil had a nice trend today, right? If VWAP is trending this way and I get an opportunity to buy below VWAP, then I'm going to buy it every time, right? If I believe that there's room left in the trend, I want to try to buy below that VWAP because then, in theory, I'm getting a better entry than the average price of the traders, you know, represented by this VWAP. So it depends a lot on the angle of VWAP. Uh, Again, flat line, range bound market, I want to buy below and sell above. But when we start to trend, I want to try to buy as close to, if not under VWAP, if I think there's room left in the trend. Uh, how do you manage a losing streak? It depends. It depends on what the streak is based on, right? If it's for me, if I get in a losing streak, it's has nothing to do with technicals. I think the way I look at the market, if I execute it the way I should every day, I probably shouldn't have a very long losing streak. But it's more of a psychological thing, right? Am I in the best mental state to take trades? Uh, am I taking trades that are in my best interest? So for me, it's asking that question, right? Is there something going on where I don't want to trade or shouldn't be trading? And then if that's the case, then I'll just take a step back because I know what I've planned technically should work as long as I execute it. And when I say should work, nothing works 100%. Um, but there's data behind what I've planned technically for it to work if I execute it. Got copper. Copper's moving. Okay. See a little bit of a move in copper. Maybe we'll pay attention to this. This has been a market that's been trending a lot as well. How do you treat low volume nodes on a volume profile? I don't normally trade volume profile, but the way I would look at it, low volume nodes are kind of like this imbalance here, right? So I would look for it to be filled at some point. This would likely show up as a, let's see if I can get a volume profile on here, right? That likely shows up as low volume. So when we trade back up to it, I want to see whether or not the market accepts these prices or rejects from it, right? There's a reason no trading happened in this area or low trading happened in this area. So when we revisit those prices, I want to see is the market now accepting these prices or are we going to continue to reject from it? Really good questions coming in though. See what copper does. What's the tick value in copper? I think it's 1250. How do we balance between haste makes waste and hesitate and lose? Uh, it's a good question. Um, I don't know that for me, I don't know how often hesitate and lose happens because if I hesitate and a trade goes without me, I try not to try to just wait for the next opportunity. Um, that's a really tough question. Uh, I'm gonna have to come back to that. I don't want to. I'm gonna have to think about that one. Let me think about that one. I'll get back to you. Yeah, that's a function of trusting in your setup for sure. Uh, how do you tell if there's for more movement? Room for movement in a trade? It depends, right? So we'll go back to the crude oil example. If I'm looking at crude and I don't get to see the chart like this, I get to see it this way, right? So I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to look left, right? I'm going to look left. And for me, it depends on what the order flow looks like, right? If I see a ton of buying come in and it looks like, again, this angle of VWAP is up and to the right, I'm going to look left and look at potential areas for the market to trade to, right? So where have we been before? And where are we likely to go, right? So the last time we traded up at these prices, 74.40, we had a really nice rejection. So I'm going to frame that out, right? We see the high volume that was there. So I'm going to look to the left and say, if I'm in here, is there potential for the market first to accept back in this range where we rejected? And then if there is, what are they likely to do here? We know to the downside, we had to have a seller come in here. So the way I'm reading this is that seller still present or are they now allowing buyers to kind of take over these prices? Right. And then you just assess it from there, right? First, it's going to be do they accept inside the range? Second, from there, I'm going to look at what do they do at 50% of that range? And then ultimately, when 50% starts to hold, do they want to trade back up to the high of that range? Now accept this as a support instead of a resistance and then push up from there. Good question though, and we don't really know, right? Coach Robert says it all the time. We don't know what our targets are going to be, but you can have, an expectation and look at this range, right? We marked out this range from a prior sell-off, and we can see the market responding to it, right? So we got a rejection right at the low of that range. We zoom forward, we got another rejection at the low of that range. We knocked on that door twice, and on the third time, it let us in. So now I'm looking at this as whoever that seller was stepped to the side, letting buyers accept these prices and trade higher. Now, do we get a full close of that range? We haven't had one since we made that sell off. And then from there, once we accept, I'll look to the left again. We would go 75.40 back up to $80. But really good question. Really good question. For a day trade, there's what's going to tell me more room is the angle of VWAP, right? If it's flat, the room is to the extremes of the range once we can identify what those extremes are. How do you determine your trading strategy? For me, it's volume. How does everyone else? And move over to gold, see if gold's moving here. I really want to be a buyer of gold. I really want to be a buyer. I'm going to trade. Someone asked, what adjustments am I going to make to having a losing day today? I'm going to be trading micros. I want to be a buyer of gold. We're back above the 200 moving average on the 30. I want to be a buyer somewhere near, because VWAP hasn't gone yet, I want to be a buyer somewhere near these lows, right around 26.74. And again, anything we're saying is for educational purposes only. What I would risk on this is likely 6 points. So I'd sell right around there, right? I would be more convinced about buying gold here if we started to break out of this range with volume going with it. But volume's kind of, you guys can see it, this flat line. Uh, this tells me from the patterns that I've seen that hasn't chosen a direction yet. But Larry, how do I determine a strategy? It's, for me, volume has made sense to me since I, started trading. So my strategy is based around volume. You might hear a trader say that you don't need volume at all to trade, and it's a bunch of nonsense. That person is not going to include it in their strategy. I think what's important for anybody is, doesn't matter what style you use. Have a playbook. But ultimately, what we're trying to find is a repeatable way to make a decision. Now, if you want to look at your charts upside down and that's how you come to your trades, great. Find a way to repeatedly do that, manage your risk, most importantly, and do the same thing over and over, right? So find a way that helps you understand what the market's trying to tell you and then take your trade from there. There's no right or wrong answer. Any preferred rules for stop size, based volatility, or other internals? Stop size, what I really like, and I learned from Coach Paul, is a 2 ATR stop on the time frame that you take the trade. So let's say I enter a trade on a 3-minute chart. I have the ATR indicator down here, and it's showing me that right now, every 3-minute candle uh, is 6 ticks in gold. So my stop would be 2 times that ATR. Right now, that's going to be 1.2 points, which is a pretty tight stop. But we can see when volatility is higher, my stop is now based on the volatility and not on my account, right? These candles are larger ranges. So if I happen to get in somewhere, in the middle of this candle, because we don't always get the highs and the lows, if I happen to get in here, I want to give the natural market fluctuations space to move, and not get ticked out, right? How many of us get ticked out of a trade before it eventually moves in our favor? We may not be accounting for the natural volatility of the market. Where if I got long in gold here and I said, I only want to risk the lows of this candle that's right next to it, I'm going to get stopped out. But if I said 2 ATRs, which at this point would be 8 points, my stop is going to be down here. Now, we might look at this and say, well, that's way too expensive of a stop. If it hits that, I'm going to blow my account. If that's the response, then we're probably trading a contract size that's a little bit too big for what our account can facilitate, right? So I could have gotten in long here, my stop be down here based on 2 ATRs, and that would have never gotten hit, right? And while the market was choppy, my stop is so far out of the way that if it gets down here, something changed in the market, right? Some market structure changed. So try to think about your stops that way based on the volatility of the market and not on what your account can facilitate. All right, let's see. We are looking at gold here, and I got to thank Coach Paul for that 2 ATR stop. I didn't. It's not the way I looked at the market. It's not the way I looked at stops, but been working with him for over a year now, and I've seen how many times that 2 ATR stop is out of the way. So if you get a good trade on, don't choke your trade by trying to be too tight with your stops. And if it costs too much, trade smaller. ATR is the average true range. So average range based on the time frame that you're looking at the chart. right? So I'm on a 3 minute. So what this is telling me is during this time, the ATR is 3 points. So on average, each of these 3 minute candles should be about 3 points. Right? Let's see if we get anything in gold. Really good questions. This yellow box is just a rectangle, and I have it set to extend to the right. Uh, how do you determine the ATR? Just use the ATR indicator, average true range indicator. Right. Got a lot of questions coming in, which are good. Can you give 3 examples how to choose your entry in a trade for a short? 3 examples of how to get into a trade. Let's see. Hopefully, we get a trade. We actually get a market movement, and I can take something. Oh, here we go. Nikkei's dipping a little bit. I do not trade the Nikkei, guys. We'll look at it. I don't trade it though. It's a little bit too thin for me, and I'm definitely not going to trade it in this XFA where I have limited drawdown, and that can be evaporated in one Nikkei trade. That could be evaporated just by the spread in the Nikkei. So I'm not going to trade it, but we can look at it. Looks like it's dipping a little bit. Yeah, we could trade it in. Do I have a practice account set up here? I don't think I do. I have some like failed combines that are just sitting out there, but let's see. I'll set up a practice account. But keep your questions coming in. Again, these markets aren't doing too much, and I don't know how much I'm expecting out of them tonight. Of course, if we see some volatility, I'll go ahead and take it. But keep the questions coming in. The trade, 3 different types of trade entries is a pretty interesting one. Uh, let's see. I'll show you what my trade entries look like. I'm gonna go with failed volume. So here, for example, we had push up. This is one of my favorite trades. A, we had this push here. I'm looking at this volume and this highest volume candle here. I'm going to identify the highs and the lows of that candle. And on a close outside of it, taking a test and rejection of that. That's one of my favorite trades where once this candle closes outside, this is telling me, so we had a test outside, but it didn't close. Once we get a close outside and now we test and reject it, this is telling me that the market is done trading these prices. And then I want to go from there. It requires patience. And where the stop would be is on the other side of the candle, right? So at the highs or somewhere near 50%. But that's one of my favorite trades to take where the market is confirming that it's done trading these prices, at least for now. And if we wait, that's a 80-point trade in a couple minutes. So that's one of my favorite setups there. There's a couple of other ones, but that's probably my favorite one. What else do we got here? What is your trading system for trading these overnight sessions? For me, it's more of a planning session, right? What I'm gonna do, I'm scanning all of these markets and I'm looking for kind of what the Nasdaq is doing right now. Let me remove this. The way I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at this first 30-minute range, looking at volume in relation to that range. You see how this volume is leaving the range? This is looking like a buy to me here. Let's just go ahead and take it. I'm going to put a trade on and we'll see what it looks like. I'll use one of these failed combines here. So what I would do, let's just put this on just so we have something to look at. Say I bought one. The idea is from this range, volume is leaving. So I want to be a buyer and continue this trend up if it's going to continue. Where I would be looking for a target, and this is not a trade that I would put on because we're so close to 20,000 and we have NFP tomorrow. My target would be somewhere near the high of this sell off, right? We had this strong sell off at 11:30 Central. I would be looking for the market to fill that imbalance and trade somewhere back up to these highs. So we'll leave that on. Ideal trade location would have been either at the high of that range or somewhere in the middle of it, but we'll leave that on for now. All right. Still scanning around, seeing if we got everything, got anything. See someone saying crude is about to drop hard. See, does have a little bit of room to pull back. Kind of holding the high of this candle. I could see crude selling off down to 72.80. If not, the lows of this range, 72.42. Can you guys hear me? Check, 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 check. All right, we can hear me now. I'm gonna pay that $5 to myself. But what I was saying is I don't want to. This is price going and not volume going with it. So that's not a confirmation for me to take a trade. You could take one. Ideally, if I was going to sell crude, I would want to sell it somewhere near the 74s because then at least I'm at a better average than this VWAP here. How do you choose which candle to draw your boxes? For me, it's going to be volume, right? It's going to be some type of high volume. You can see the volume indicator I have here. These are 3-minute candles. I want to find anything that sticks out, right? So anything that looks like an anomaly, because then what that's telling me is I have a visual cue for, hey, something happened at these prices, and then I can go from there. So, quick example, we have 6:30 Central Time. If we look at this volume spike compared to everything else around it, this is significant. Now, why did someone come in and sell a bunch of contracts in crude oil at 6:27 Central Time? I don't know, but I want to frame out that range, and then I want to see how the market responds to that range. Starts to hold 50% of it, and volume buyers are starting to take control. Since whatever happened here, buyers are taking control, right? So now that's the support. Now, where else can I look? Here is the reaction to Biden, and his comments on Israel. I want to frame that out because this was a market event. And how does the market respond to that event? We hold price in it. We're not trading towards the lows of it anymore. 50% of it starts to act as a support. And when we trade up to the highs, it starts to act as somewhat of a resistance, right? So for me, I just want to frame out high volume because it tells me that those prices, when something happened, these are the prices that were important to the market. And then I can make my decisions based on that. Uh, what else do we got here? With a 50K combine, would $100 to $200 risk, is $100 to $200 risk recommended? Uh, Losing 100 to make 200. Yeah, I mean, if you could, it depends on your win rate, right? If you are winning 10% of your trades, but every time you win, you make 200, and every time you lose, you make 100, you lose 100, you're not going to be profitable, right? So it depends on your win rate with that risk to reward. If you're saying that you want to limit your losses on a 50K account to $100, I think that's good, right? I think that is you're going to have to trade micros, obviously, and not a whole lot of them, but there's a lot of opportunity with trading these 50K accounts. Out of curiosity, can you put an anchored VWAP at the Biden commentary? Yeah. Right here. It's gonna be pretty flat because right after that happened, volume kind of died out. But we can see at some point when we stopped this chop and started to hold 50% of this as a support, then that VWAP becomes a support as well. But not really much happened after this. Uh this Nasdaq trade looks pretty good now, right? Should have took that on the XFA. We could have dug us out of the hole a little bit. How do you evaluate volume in slow markets when the volumes are typically very low? I just want to compare the volume to it's all relative, right? It's all relative volume. Let's watch this. If I can get my actual there we go. This is the one I was looking for. So if I'm looking at volume for slow markets, I want to use this VWAP indicator because it's going to tell me relative to the volume that's trading around it, what the market thinks. But I can't compare overnight volume to what happens in the New York session. See, I would be very surprised if we get a push above 20K. Right now, there's 68 contracts sitting at 20,000. Um, do we have, enough overnight volume to push through that would be my question. During the New York session, that should be pretty easy to get through, but are there enough market participants right now to get through a 60 lot order, a 70 lot order at 20,000? Mhm. Good questions. We can do some trade review as well. If anyone does want to, like Dakota does every night, send your trade reports into, you can put them in his channel. I'll go check there. If anyone wants trade review, we'll do it a little bit later. Um, we can do that as well. What is this profit target based on? It's based on this big selling that we had earlier, and the market trying to fill this imbalance, right? So we saw it came up a couple times and rejected. We had it tested once, twice. I'm expecting, at least with this profit target, that on the third time we get a little bit more of a push there. So you aren't really looking at the volume at the level at the bottom of your screen. No, I'm actually staring at this all the time. Um, while I'm trading, I probably know more about the volume than I do about the price of the market. Um, where prices are going to be relevant to where, in my opinion, prices are relevant to where market participants say that they're relevant, right? So if somebody wants to trade, you know, 5,000 contracts at 19,372 and a half, then that price meant something to them, and I just want to follow them, right? So I'm paying attention to this first and then price afterwards. Straight to funded Richard Harris. I heard MP said that wasn't a thing that he was interested in, but maybe you never know, right? You never know. If there's a way that Topstep can do it and do it Topstep's way, then it might happen. I don't want to speak on that too much because I'm not the decision maker on that, but um, potentially. What's the difference between VWAP and anchored VWAP? So the difference is the anchored VWAP. So VWAP itself is going to be, at least the one I have here in Topstep X, is going to start at the beginning of every session, right? I can change this to be every week, every month, but right now the way I have it is set to every session. The difference with an anchor is I'm anchoring it to a different time frame, right? So for example, this actually worked out really well in the Nasdaq today. This is this blue line. Let's make it a little bit bigger so we can actually see it. So this blue line here is this full session VWAP. This anchor is the anchor from the high of the day. You see how those are different, right? And now this anchor is telling me since we made this high, what has volume done? It's selling off. And obviously we can see it in the price, but how I use this now is okay, every time we come back to volume, what does the market do? Do buyers take control or do sellers take control? And we can see this acting as a resistance the entire way down. Presents some pretty good opportunities to take a trade, right? Here's one, stop could have been above here. Here's another one, stop could have been above here. Here's one more, right? So that's the difference between an anchor and a normal one. Can we request to add a 25K combine to Topstep? You can. I don't know who that request would go to, but you can. Nasdaq trade is looking pretty good. See what happens at 20,000 here. 20,071 contracts sitting out there right now. And again, what was this trade based on? We had I was on a 30-minute chart. We had the first 30-minute opening range. and we had volume attached to that range, and the volume was leaving the range. So you guys see how this volume is starting to act like a support, right? This red line is starting to act like a support. Every time we're coming back down to the average, buyers are still pushing the market higher. So that trade was based on that. 20,000 traded a few contracts there, not the whole thing. Looks like they actually, nope, 77 contracts of volume traded there. So that full order traded out. That was a passive seller on the books. Got their order filled, and let's see if we continue. Gold short. I don't want to jump over to gold yet. Maybe we can, but for me, the way I've found it is if I identify a trade in a market, I'm going to stick with that one until that trade, and let that trade play out. I got the information I needed about 20,000 here, right? We did trade 20,000. I want to see some follow through on this, right? So we got some really nice volume here. What I would do here is now that is the highest volume that we traded. I'm going to frame this out, and now I want to see the market's response to this. So I know we have buyers that came in and created this at the highs of this range. Do they continue to push, or do they come back in? And now I'm looking to the left. We obviously have to get above this 20,017, which was a resistance into the close. And this was the candle that we're targeting the highs of. So let's see. Right now we're accepting back into the, so my target's up here, right? Right now we're trying to accept back into this candle. I want to see price start to close in this range. And it can chop around in it as long as it starts to close in this range. The low of that range is 20,002 basically. Um, Now I want to see market accept here and then start to trade higher. Would you move your stop up here? Yeah, I think where I could probably move my stop. Well, yeah, I definitely don't want to take a loss on this trade. Where I would move my stop is, let me tell you right now. So let's go back. Yeah, I would probably go somewhere under 50% of this, where if we come back down and test VWAP again, I can always get back into the trade. I would really love to see in this trade this VWAP start to catch up to price, because then I could, whatever candle was the last one to test that VWAP, I could set my stop under there and secure some profits, right? So ideally, I would want to be somewhere under here, right? Because these are the last candles that tested that VWAP. Yeah, I'm going to set it there for now. Right, we were risking about 500. These are the last candles to test VWAP. So if these don't hold, then okay, this trade is invalidated. I don't want to choke this one, and we're going to set the profit target up here. Can you anchor that to any part of the candle when anchoring? So right now, the way my anchor settings go, they are open, high, low, close divided by 4. So it's going to default put it somewhere in the middle of the candle, right? You can change this source to low, and then it's going to anchor it to the low price. You can change it to high, to open. Um, if you read the book on Anchor VWAP by Brian Shannon, he's going to say use open, high, low, close divided by 4. Because in that way, if I was doing it, anchoring it to a different part of the candle every time, logistically, I don't want to have to go in here and change the setting every time. So I'm just going to use the average. How do you consider price to reject a level? So kind of exactly what's happening at 20,000 in the Nasdaq right now, right? Where we had a big order out there. There was 70 contracts. We can see, if I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it on this volume profile, but 88 contracts were traded at that 20,000 price. Now, what I'm looking at is handle closes and the reaction at 20,000. I want to see this time in sales be all green for this trade right now, right? Because otherwise, we are rejecting it. I'm looking at the diamond time in sales to see if buyers keep coming in. I'm gonna figure it out, guys. I'm sorry. That one I'm gonna send to Jack. Uh, how often do you see a setup but don't take it percentage wise? Uh, it's funny that you asked that question, Seekin. Today I saw probably 4 very clean setups, and when I say very clean, no drawdown, exactly what I playbooked, I didn't take one of them. So today was an 0 for 4. Uh, Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, um, but it depends. It's not a very high percentage where, I see the setup, I can just click the button, but it really depends where I'm at, mentally. Am I in a great place to trade? Do I feel like trading? I came in yesterday, didn't really feel like trading, and more than missing setups, I just let them go by. Where I said, you know what, I'm not going to trade. What's my favorite food? I would have to say either steak or crab legs. Good question. Million Six says I do it a lot on fast markets. Well, I'm going to be on fast markets tomorrow, and we are not going to skip setups in fast markets tomorrow. Uh, this is exactly what rejection of a level looks like, though, and we said it. Do we have enough convinced buying above 20,000 in an overnight session to uh, to trade above 20,000? Right, it's a major level. We're going to need to see buyers step in here to push it up. Um, not really seeing selling come in either. Uh, but if I'm looking at this VWAP again, it hasn't caught up to price. Would not be surprised at a reversion to VWAP here. We're gonna get some good stuff in the house account as long as the market presents it. We're gonna get some good stuff in the house account tomorrow. How did I draw the gray green channel? This it's just a fib tool, but then if you look at the settings, I have everything unchecked except for 0, 50%, and 100%. And then the 50% is green, and that's why it draws it as gray and green. You guys see how price is kind of rejecting where we're not seeing buyers in time and sales, right? Look at this rejection. Right at the low of this candle where we had a sell off, we saw during the New York session that we checked 50% of this price and it rejected again. Does the market accept these prices or are we going to get another rejection here? Reversal challenge on the house account would be crazy. But let's see. Any other questions? Let me know. Right now, you guys did say gold was moving as well, I think. Um, Gold looks very similar, right? The one thing about gold that I don't like, and you guys could probably see it, volume hasn't left the range. Price did, but volume hasn't. This is not a trade I would take. Difference in the Nasdaq, volume left that range. So I know that there's at least another buyer in here that's not named Jay, right? Because Jay doesn't move the markets, unfortunately. I wish I could. But at least they like price above this range, and we go from there. How do you go about selling and getting back in? If I wanted to close this trade out and get back in, I have to I'm gonna assess it as a new trade, right? Do I still like this trade idea? And I'm not gonna get back in anywhere away from volume. Right now, I have a pretty good entry on this at the lows of this range. So I'm gonna reassess it as its own trade. On the time and sales, is the green on bid or lifting the offer? So the way I'm reading this is, and it's not technically exactly right, but I just like to simplify things as much as possible. If it's red, it's selling. If it's green, it's buying. But truly, what it is, if it's red, it's hitting the bid. If it's green, it's on the offer. Uh, there's a one tick spread or two tick spread most of the time in the Nasdaq, so it's hard to tell. If we were trading stocks with a larger spread, then it's a lot easier to tell whether or not the order was at the bid, on the offer, or somewhere in between the two. How did you add color to your DOM? Uh, just in the settings, blue and green. If I could change everything that's red and green to blue and orange, I would. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm just not gonna hit the mute button at all anymore. I made a joke the other day that I was gonna send Jack 50 bucks for mute fees. I didn't think I was gonna spend that all tonight. But so if we moved our stop up to 50%, we would have just gotten ticked out and made $230 on that trade, which is not a bad idea because the thesis behind the trade changed, right? In order for this trade to continue, we needed to see buyers keep buying. And 20 at that 20,000, we didn't see the buying, right? There's the rejection off of it. Now, this is just basically a practice account, so I'm okay with it. But hopefully you guys saw that, right? We had the order at 20,000, we traded it, and then I'm looking for this time in sales to be green above 20,000 and we didn't get it, right? A lot of indecision in these candles. This VWAP never caught up to price. I would not be surprised now if we go back and test that VWAP or trade under it. Would I add more? It depends. If this actually started to trend and we got a pullback, um, I probably don't want to add below 20,000 at this point. I would rather this market show me that it has the potential to trend even higher than where my profit target is, and then add somewhere up there. I don't think I would add to this right now. And just saw a comment that said, if I was, let's say I was in two contracts, if I see this hesitation at 20,000, I'm absolutely taking one off, right? And then just leaving that second one as a runner. And if it comes back down and doesn't stop me out, then I might add that second contract back on. But that's if I'm trading multiple contracts, right? I'm in a one lot right now, so I have to make a decision about the full position. But if I was in multiple, let's say I was in five contracts, five micros, and we've traded up to 20,000, I would probably take 80% of the position off because of that hesitation. Now, is there a case to move the stop up where this was the candle we were looking at? We tested 50%, and now moving the stop up to here? Yeah, because then if we come back down again, I think we sell, right? 50% of this showed that it's somewhat supportive. It did need, the space to test it. So now I'm gonna say this candle, if sellers failed here, right, where they tried to push price lower, they failed. Now continue to trade up. Would I put a buy stop at 20,020? I wouldn't because my target on this trade is at 32. I don't know that I would add another contract 12 points away from where my exit is. But if you have a higher profit target, right? If you think this is going up here to 20,100, which it very well can, then that might be the breakout trade that you're looking for. It's a pretty good trade. Again, I wish I took this in my XFAs could have used this trade. Let's see now. Seeing a little bit more buying coming in above 20,000. Did I get any formal trading lessons? I did. The guy I took classes from, his name was Rich Lepis. He's actually no longer with us, but he ran a group called Ahead of the Charts, and it was all volume and time and sales based, right? So when he gave classes, pretty much the answer to every one of his questions in class could have been volume, right? Where he's trying to identify what the larger market participants are doing and then building a trade around that. So shout out to you, Rich. Thank you for teaching me how to trade. If you guys want the YouTube group's YouTube page is still active. It's called Ahead of the Charts. You may not understand a lot of it, but if you're a volume analyst and you read time and sales, some pretty good videos on there. I actually sometimes, if I'm going to do a class and someone's asking me about a topic, I'll go back and watch some of those YouTube videos just to see how he would explain it and get it from there. But good question. All right. What time we got? We got about 20 minutes left. Let's see if we can do. David Greenfades asked me a question in my Discord. Why are you trading on an ineligible 100K account? Why don't you trade on a proper combine or an XFA? This is not serious trading. Great question. I mentioned it before I took the trade that I don't normally trade during this time. I'm not going to trade on an XFA that is in the hole during a time that I don't trade. And this is for educational purposes only. So hopefully that answers your question. Consider changing your Discord name to something that actually represents you and not talking down on somebody else. And that's the last question I'm going to answer from you. But thank you, though. Thank you for joining. Let's see what we got as far as combines to or accounts to review. Yeah, guys, please don't play around. I don't like talking like that, right? We're all here to learn. If there's nothing to learn, you could always close the stream. It's probably late wherever you are. Uh, might be a better use of your time somewhere else. And again, let's see what we get at this 20K. We did see some buying above it, which looks good. Um, let's see. All right, I got two XFAs here to review. Let me set up my OBS in order to do that. Second here. All right, so probably can't see me. There I am. Make sure I get the chat up as well. All right. So XFA looks like you started mid September. Uh, really nice balance in this account. Really good win rate as well. Taking 35 trades, only losing seven. Your average winners just about the same size as your average losers, but with this win rate, makes sense that you have $9,000 in this account. I don't know if this was a drawdown or withdrawal, but we'll take a look. Really, really, really good hold times. You're holding trades over 3 hours on average. Uh, this is great. This is amazing trade. This is the type of trading, and just off this review alone, this is the type of trading that gets called up to a live account, right? Where not a whole lot of trades, uh, extremely consistent, not a losing day in this account so far, and you're not trading a whole lot, right? A lot of Nikkei trades, crude oil trades. So I'm wondering, is this an account that is dedicated to something specifically, right? Sometimes people have, oh, this is only my overnight account, or I'm only going to trade this type of strategy. That's kind of what this looks like. Where a lot of these are, honestly, this looks like a slow markets account, right? This is really nice. And a lot of one and dones, right? Which is great. I see a bunch of different markets here. So what this tells me is that you have a specific setup that you're looking for. And when you identify that setup, regardless of the market that it's in, you take the setup, which I like to trade that way as well, right? Where if I default to the Nasdaq every day and the Nasdaq is very choppy and I like to trade trends, then I'm not going to have a great day. But if I can find the market that's trending, I can take the same technical trade there. And that's what this looks like, right? Really good hold times. Interesting that, you know, your losses are only 2 hours plus. So maybe don't hold on too long, but this is great. Really good stuff. I have nothing bad to say about this. Again, do this consistently. And again, obviously you paid yourself because this drawdown here uh, was not from a loss. This is the type of account that gets called up to live. Uh, what I will say is I did see a couple of losing days that you did turn around. This win streak, it may go on for another 6 months. At some point, it's going to come to an end. I would just say, just be okay with that, accepting that. Whenever it does happen, obviously it shouldn't throw you off track. I don't think it will based on this trading. But don't let it, right? Don't let, a losing day throw you off track. It's bound to happen, and it's a game of percentages. And I don't know of anyone that has a 100% win rate. Hogue talked about some guy who basically just bought on the floor and just never got out of trades. Unfortunately, we can't do that here. So keep this up. This is really nice. NQ's close to my profit target for myself. Pull up Topstep X. Oh yeah, did I take the profit target off? Oh, I moved it up. Had big eyes. Yeah. So here now I'd move this up. Move this up here. Let's see if VWAP caught up at all. Not really, but we are closing above the highs of this candle. Yeah, I would if we get back in. So this candle that we had this high volume. Let's get this out of the way. But this candle that had this high volume, let's see if this holds. And I may just continue to trail this up. I normally don't trade with profit targets, guys. If it's a slow market trade, I would. But we're 10 points away. I'm just going to keep trailing. Thanks for shouting that out, though, because uh, I had that much higher. And who was that? The David Green fader was right. I should have took this in an account that mattered, but there's always tomorrow. But good questions. Let me see if we got anything else in the chat, and then I'll pull up one more trade report. Anyone take and again, these are not signals classes, but anyone take any trades right now in an account that matters, whether it's an active XFA, combine, personal account, live account. Trail this up, see if this candle high holds. Dakota's long the Nikkei from the beach, 5 contracts. Let's go. Nice trade, man. I got any questions here? What is more important to focus on, right entry port or right time to close a trade? Uh, I think it's tough, right? It depends on your style of trading. If you're a momentum trader, time and location and time matter. If you're just a location trader, more like Dakota, where he picks a price and says, "I like this price," uh, then just location, right? For me, I struggle with patience of sitting in trades. So for me, timing and location matter. I will sacrifice a little bit of location for the market to say, "Hey, we're moving now." Right? This trade right here, this from a location perspective lines up, right? This 20,050 lines up with my trading strategy. But it took 45 minutes before the market even moved. I would rather sacrifice this trade location, have this happen here, this sell off, and now the market says, yes, we're selling, and then I'll get in a little bit later. Because then I know I'm not going to have to sit in the trade as long. But it depends on your style. Barisa says, you feel calm trading? Hopefully, yeah, I try to be calm as well. I'm not always this calm if I'm trading by myself. I wish I could trade with you guys all the time because I'm not always this calm. Sometimes I'm over here screaming, moving stuff around. Uh, but, you know, only thing I don't like about this trade is volume hasn't caught up yet, but it's good from a price perspective. It's good. And let's see. Coach Ray would be talking about the 10% rule right now, where we are a couple of ticks away. Do this. There we go. And we're out. And this could continue to go. This could continue to go, but who knows? That's where I set my profit target. Could I have set it higher? And the Nasdaq is just ripping higher now. Dakota, that Nikkei trade is probably looking amazing right now as well. Oh yeah, thanks. But let's see, we're coming up to this resistance now, 20,050, where we did have some rejection earlier in the New York session. So let's see whether or not price accepts here. Uh, if there's some news, let me know. I haven't seen anything, um, but if there is some news, let me know. I do want to do another trade review, but right now the markets are moving, so let's assess that instead. 20,050, 26 contracts sitting there. We are obviously seeing some buying coming in. What I want to do now is anchor VWAP to where this breakout kind of started and see if that acts as a support. So now you guys see the difference in angles, right? This is a flat angle. This is starting to lean upwards. If we get a pullback to this VWAP or back to this range, I would want to buy there. The high volume candle I had framed out here was this one, right? This was the highest volume of the day in the New York session. Let's see what we're doing there. I think we just rejected at 50% of it. Yep, there we go. Rejection at 50% so far. Now I'm reading the candle. We accepted the low half of that candle. Now do we accept the other side of it? This 50% is going to tell us a lot right here. What does it mean, price acceptance? Price moving and volume going with it for me. Um, and you know, I see somebody mentioning the strike was averted. That's the only news that I really saw tonight. I don't have financial juice up. I guess I could pull it up and see. Yesterday's point of control right here. Let's see what happens at this 50% area and 20,050. Again, 26 contracts sitting there. The market already showed us that with a 70 lot order, it didn't have any problem trading it. So let's see if buyers are still convinced up here. It's a different one. This was the only other candle that I had mapped out. Right? And we kind of traded through that one. So I'm going to invalidate that one. And let's see. We traded 20,050, fill that full order there. Fill that full order. Let's see if we get any follow through. I would not be surprised if 20,050 gives us a little bit of a pullback to maybe get into that trade. This is a great market. And remember what this trade was originally based on, right? This trade was originally based on 30-minute Globex opening range and volume leaving the range. Why didn't we trade gold? Because gold's volume didn't leave the range. Not surprised that we're not seeing price action in gold. But if we go back to the Nasdaq, Nasdaq left, telling us that the market is trying to trend at least. Still would love to see volume catch up, but it hasn't yet. VWAP is now coming into that range. Yeah, so exactly. It's catching up a little bit, right? It's catching up a little bit. This here, so the way I would be reading this is we've gotten so far extended from volume that the buyers here are maybe not the same buyers that were down here, right? These people are happy who bought here because price is trading 70 points above their average, but the buyers up here are likely weaker buyers because this volume hasn't caught up yet. So I would not be surprised at a retracement and continuation of this move. But this is really nice. Let's see if we get back above 20,050 and get some continuation here. So you would get in buys when it touches the blue anchored VWAP. I only have red anchored VWAPs here, but I would be looking at the market reaction to 20,016. So now this is someone had asked a question, buying above VWAP and selling below it. Because this VWAP is angled up and to the right, if we get a quick flush back to this 20,000 and it holds, I would be buying because then I'm in a better position than these buyers here. I don't use volume profile. I understand how valuable it is. I just try to keep as little things on my charts as possible. When it sounds crazy because I have a lot on them, but volume profile is great. Volume profile is great. All right, we got a few minutes. I know I did start late, so maybe I'll go 10, 15 minutes after as long as these markets keep moving. But let's see what happens. Kind of holding up here, not seeing any selling. And if you're ever reading time and sales, notice how I've only looked at time and sales when we're approaching major levels. If I try to make sense of, and I have this set to a one lot filter, if I tried to make sense of every single print in this, I'm going to drive myself crazy and not be able to hold trades, right? But when we get to major levels, I want to see what the market's reaction is. And right now it's mixed, right? You're going to see some counter flow orders come in. That's okay. As long as the overall picture hasn't changed, we're good in this trade. Can we review my combine? That's from Josh. Josh, if you put the where'd you put the link in the chat? If you put it in Dakota's chat, share a link to it. I'll try to review one more. Oh yeah, Dakota. So Dakota, let me. Said you were long the Nikkei 800. This guy here, long 5 contracts in the Nikkei from 38 800. Great trade, great trade, man. Trading from the beach. Isn't that the lifestyle that we all strive for in doing this? That's amazing, bro. When you are waiting for volume to catch up, is the particular indicator you use, or am I? I'm referring to VWAP. When I say I'm looking for volume to catch up, I'm referring to VWAP, right? So we see, and I anchored here because we had some volume come in here, and the market respected this range. So now I'm looking for this volume to catch up to price. This red one down here, and maybe we'll make it a different color so we can distinguish between the two. This yellow one is the full session, right? So this is accounting for, before a lot of this volatility that we saw. Let's go to this purple one here. That's the Asian session open, right? So Asian session opens at 7 p.m. Central Time. This is the volume so far since the Asian session. And now this anchor here is just anchored to this high volume candle, right? So which one is more relevant? First, I'm going to default to this one because this is when volume started to come in. So if we come back and hold this, great. On a pullback, I would be looking for this 20,000s to this 1995 to hold. But we may not get a pullback, right? If this continues to catch up, then I might need to look for entries to continue this trend a little bit lower. Right. Where's Dakota at? Dakota is on the beach. On the beach hanging out. Justin, you caught this trade in the beginning. Nice trade, man. Nice trade. If I'm gonna review your combine, Josh, I need the link to your performance stats. So go to the performance stats. There's a link there to share. I need that link. Do I have any videos explaining volume? I do. There are in the Topstep coaches library. There are a few videos I did. They're kind of old now, but still very relevant, and they're real trade examples, just like we just did. Um, but real time trading examples for volume analysis. I'll try to find the link to the coaches library. I'll put that in the chat. There we go. It's in there now. At what point would I be short the NQ? I mean the cheap short, if you will, is a look for reversion back to this VWAP because we did get kind of extended from it. So maybe here, but it would be very tight on the stop, right? I would probably go above this range here, which is 14 points. But it's a counter trend short to me. I would love a short if we just continued to push and this volume stayed where it is. We pushed up to 20,100 and volume stayed where it is. I would short back to 50, right, for a quick 50-point trade. All right. Someone was asking how to anchor VWAP on the left side over here. Forecasting and measurement tools. Anchored VWAP halfway down the menu. Click the star to add it to your favorites and just click on a candle and it anchors it from there. So now let's see, we just made this high, right, for this session. I'm going to anchor a VWAP to the high. Put it on this candle. Now let's see what happens in the next couple of minutes, because the same thing happened during the New York session today, right? We made a high, the market started to push up, and if I anchored VWAP to that high, it started to act as a resistance and we came right back down. So right now we're settling kind of under this one here. This may give us a push lower. All right, we got a few minutes left here. Again, like I said, I'll go 10 minutes over since I started a little bit late. So if you guys have any more questions, I'll save the trade review for next week, Josh, because to me, it looks a little bit better if we can get it from Topstep X. Congrats on passing the combine. Hopefully it took you a couple days. Let's see. If you guys got any more questions, let me know. Let me see what we got here. Bradley, yep, anchored VWAP from the high. Topstep X is very poor for order flow. We're gonna get some more tools in Topstep X, but poor for order flow, but you can still use these tools, right? With all the tools that I have in Quant Tower, I didn't learn it that way. They just make my job a little bit easier, right? I learned how to read volume with the DOM and time and sales, and that was it. We actually didn't even use VWAP, right? So you can do it here. Do other tools make it a little bit easier? Yes, but got to rep Topstep X, right? And we're getting delta indicators and things like that soon, so the platform will continue to get better. How do you manage a trade when the price moves quickly away from your entry without any significant news? Uh, if I'm in the trade and it moves away, and quicker than I expected, I'm just gonna trail and lock in some profits, right? Because the way I read volume, I wanna see the sustainability of volume as well, right? Where we have this sell off, and then immediately after we have some buying. I want to see that volume and sustain how much it's bringing in. Because if we can't, we had the open here and there was 8,000 contracts traded, and we have this spike, which was news, and there's 13,000. It's not likely that we're going to sustain 13,000 contracts of volume every 3 minutes. So if we get a move really quick, I'm going to lock some of it in because the probability of continuation is a little bit lower if we get this huge spike of volume, right? Just going rapid fire through some of these questions. What do I use for power trade settings? Alex, I'm going to put a video together. Uh, I'll run through it real quick. If you understand power trades, you'll understand. The Nasdaq, 400 contracts in a second. The S&P's 1500, gold 250, and crude oil 250. Uh, but I think that might be it. What I would be watching here is again this VWAP from the high. Do we reclaim it or does it start to act as a resistance? 20,050 whole number level. We're gonna need to see some buyers come up there. See what else we got here. Not seeing any other questions right now. Been a long day. Uh, been on Topstep TV 3 times today. Appreciate it, right? I love the opportunity to talk to traders. Um, again, my goal here is to try to help everyone in their trading journey. Um, Still while focusing on my own. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this session. Uh, Trade well tomorrow. Remember, we have NFP. The way I'm going to look at NFP, can somebody, real quick, this is the last thing I'm going to do. The last NFP print, can somebody tell me what that date was? If we can look it up real quick. Oh, Kinda Crazy says you need your own show, bro. Well, guess what? I have my own show. Every day, 4:15 Eastern Time, 3:15 Central, right after the close, Coach Paul and I do at the buzzer our market recap. The markets are closed, so no live trading, but a lot of the recap and review that we do is at that time, right? Right after the markets close, right after the daytime session is over, we do a trade review. If anyone's been in at the buzzer, you can let me know how that session has been. September 6th. All right, so here we go. Last thing I'm going to do going into tomorrow's session, I'm probably not going to take another trade tonight, but September 6th is the last time we had an NFP print. So what I'm going to do, and that we know that print comes out at 8:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 Central. I'm going to do the same thing I do all the time. I'm going to frame out this candle. I'm not going to trade during it because I can't manage my risk in this. I'm going to frame out the candle. I'm going to attach VWAP to it. From the time that candle printed, volume never left the range. I'm not considering this great price action. It's pretty flat, right? The angle of VWAP is pretty flat, so any extensions into major levels have the potential to reject. Price gets back under it. Price starts to leave the range, right? Maybe not the greatest trade because I would love this volume to be closer to price. We can see price never left that range, right? Neither did volume, and we get a sell-off. So I'm going to do the same thing for NFP tomorrow. When I talk about trades on fast markets, they're going to be based on this because this is going to give us information for the market to trade. And where did I anchor? I anchored to the event, right? This is NFP. This is the print. The anchor is going to go there because what that tells me is from that print, how does the market respond? Thank you, everyone, for joining. Let me actually have some notes all over the place right now. See if I have any notes that I need to read. I don't think so. Remember that this class is all the time. Coach Paul and I do at the buzzer every day. Oh yeah, here we go. If you want to pass with the pros, we had Keegan on today. Thought Keegan did a really good job in a tough session, not being able to get a trade on, during that low volume. We did have one on, decided to cut it because the price action didn't look great. But if you want to be the next one to pass with the pros, uh, fill out that link right there. Make sure you fill it out correctly because Dolby is going to throw it in the trash if it's not. Um, and maybe get your opportunity to trade on Topstep TV, maybe during a segment with me. Hopefully, I can help you out and get you across the finish line. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to delete that comment and we're going to put you in timeout for 24 hours because as much as I appreciate you guys with this class, this is Dakota's class. Dakota will be back next week, and we will continue from there. Thanks, everyone. I will catch you all on Fast Markets tomorrow with Dakota. Dakota, if you're still watching, great trade, and let's get some in the house tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.